When I first received this assignment, I was a bit taken aback. For a few reasons. It asked us to find a family member, like a parent or a grandparent, to interview, preferably an immigrant. I wish to ask the next time you consider the students in your class more carefully. Some of us are of a certain age and no longer have that family pool to refer to. As far as immigrant interviews, in this political climate, as a Mexican-American immigrant, my grandmother would not feel comfortable participating. So the person I ended up videoing is my mother. She grew up in the 50s in the Fillmore district in San Francisco. African Americans came to the Fillmore in large numbers only because of the previous Japanese American residents forcibly evacuated to internment camps during World War II. The forced evacuation handed the neighborhood by default to black immigrants who flocked to San Francisco to contribute with the war effort. Hello, this is Daria Brown. I am going to be interviewing my mother, Pamela Matthews. Here we go. Say hi, Mommy.
Hi, Mommy.
No, you're Mommy.
Oh.
Say hi.
Hello, Daria. Sweetie.
Okay. So, bear with us. My mom is laying down. She doesn't feel well. So, question. When and where were you born?
Oh, now you're getting way too much.
He told me to ask. It's not my fault.
What's my last name you said?
No, I said, when were
I
you
know what
born?
you said.
My mother is a comedian.
No, I'm not. I was born I'm 62.
No, you're 68.
And you pushing it.
I'm done.
Yeah, I'm that. And I was born in 669. 660.
49. You were
All
born in
right.
1949. June
June
16,
16,
1949. In San Francisco, right?
Yes.
Okay. They came to live in California because my grandfather was in the military and ended up being stationed out here prior to my mother's birth. My great-grandparents also moved the family out here because my grandfather worked in the Hunters Point shipyards. My grandparents bought a home in the Fillmore area, a brand new home, and my mom's favorite memory of this home is that it had thick carpeting and indoor plumbing. The kind of games that they played growing up, they played ball, they rode bikes, they skated. They would take wood and make a sled and slide down the hills of San Francisco. Ironically, I did the same thing. Their favorite thing to do as teenagers was to go to movies in groups. They weren't allowed to go to movies by themselves or on dates, so everything had to be in group activities. When I asked her what was school like as a child, she said academically it was okay, but her big brother was a brainiac. But she had fun in her social life, cheering, things of that nature. Do you remember any fads from your youth was my next question to her. And what were the popular hairstyles? She said a lot of the black girls wore afros, and because her hair would not go into afro, she wore an afro wig. All the holidays, Christmas, Thanksgiving, things of that nature. Though everybody would go to Mother and Sons, which those were the names of my mom's grandparents and the names of what we call my great-grandparents. Mother, because of course everyone called her mother. And then Son, my great-grandfather got that name because his dad called him Son. So it just kind of, everybody picked it up. How is the world different today from when she was a child? She said it was really just as scary and prejudiced as it was when she was a child. It may be worse because people were more open about what they didn't like back then. And now you just don't know. It was less killings, and she said she's just more scared for her family nowadays. The oldest relatives she remembers when she was a child were her grandparents. Mother was no nonsense, very sweet. Son, he was a bit more direct and traditional from that standpoint, not allowing the girls to walk to school or walk home. He had to pick everybody up. Just really old school. When asked, are there any physical characteristics that run in the family? Several either have blue eyes or hazel eyes with a very yellow tone in them, including my father and my middle daughter from my mom. This was my mom's, speaking. The only memorable heirloom that my mother has is her mother's Bible. It's a large print, leather-bound Bible with her name in it that is probably about 40 years old. The other heirloom is a large, like a 11 by 14 oil painting of my mom's favorite cousin who is no longer with us. I asked my mom, what is the full name of your spouse? She said, well, I've been married a few times. The first time was right out of high school. His name was Steve Howard II. My second husband was Andre Gregory Tharp. And the last was Bernard Labat. Her siblings, Kwame Kalimara Osajifo, which was not his birth name. My uncle decided to become a militant Black Panther and changed his name to that from Tony Matthews. Trina Matthews is her sister. Walter Pedro Matthews Jr. is her baby brother. Parents, Walter Pedro Matthews Sr. and Laura Matthews. When I asked her, how did you meet your spouse? She said, my first husband, which was my dad, lived near my cousin. She saw him at a local burger place and he lit up a cigarette and she thought he was fine. So she asked her cousin to introduce them. Their first date was they went to eat and went to the movies. When I asked her, well, how did he propose? And where did he do it? How did you feel? She said, my father made us get married. No, I wasn't pregnant, but because I had shared my flower and my cousin told on me, my father told him we were going to get married or else. It was a true shotgun wedding. I graduated high school in June of '67, and in September, we were married at City Hall. I asked her why did she pick the names for us that she chose. I'm her firstborn. She said she named me after my godmother. My sister, Ladrea, is a mix of my mother's name, Pamela, and my father's name, Andre. It was trendy back then. And then Brianna, my last sister, I picked her name. It was a really popular name at the time, and I thought it was pretty. I asked her what was her proudest moment as a parent, and she said there's no one moment. There are many. Every time your child accomplishes a milestone in life, you're happy. You celebrate it. When I asked finally, what accomplishments are you most proud of? She said being a grandparent. Because again, I feel like their accomplishments are mine because they came from me. One of the final thoughts my mom had was, growing up as a mixed race individual, a lot of the kids didn't want to play with her. She was never black enough, never white enough. A lot of the black girls wanted to cut her hair, didn't want her to talk to their boys. But in our own family household, race wasn't really spoken. My uncle went to college. Now, he came back and decided to be a Black Panther. He always was angry and never wanted to acknowledge anything other than his black side, thus the change of his name to Kwame Osajifo Kalimara. During the Civil Rights Movement, my mom said she really couldn't relate. She'd only experienced racism one time, and that was at a restaurant in the Embarcadero back in the 60s, where she and a date were asked by the restaurateur not to come in. I asked her about what her thoughts were in the political climate currently. She said it scares her. It makes her think of hell and the Bible, specifically the Revelations and the end of time. She says she stays in prayer constantly.